Well, hello, and
Hello.
welcome again to Average Superstar TV. I am your host, Lauren Lepre. Please give me that subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio. And for anyone who's been following my shows, yes, I'm largely into the film business and also music. But let me just start out by saying for myself, I was always a person that believed, America as anyway, that like you had your 10 major cities and then everywhere in between was just, farmland and small town Hickville. And, I always had this thing about getting in my car one day and driving across America. So right now I'm up to 6 trips. I've been to every state but Alaska. And I would just like to tell everybody what was in my head and what the news and what, everybody what was around me that never got out, completely freaking wrong. Even when I was looking on the map, I think America's every state. I like everything. It's amazing because there's some parts you want to stay away from, of course. But I remember, looking at the map and looking at North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, and Montana and saying, damn it, I got to go there just to say I put my foot in there. I got to get out as fast as possible. And when I got there, I felt very foolish. I fell in love with those 4 states. South Dakota is now my favorite state. So I just like to say to everybody, don't assume anything. Don't let the news influence you. You got to go. Which brings me to my guest here, who is a resident of Alaska. So I would just like to say, I'm going to sit here and pick her brain. I think everybody, when they say Alaska, just thinks a big sheet of ice. And that's it, glaciers and stuff. But, I know from a lot of people that have gone to Alaska to say it's a very beautiful state.
It
so
is.
With that, I would like to, Daniella Shepard, welcome to Average Superstar TV.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me on. When we're talking about myths and things about Alaska, that is part of what my own podcast is about, is dispelling some of the myths that, the film writing industry has about Alaska. We have a joke here, Alaska, 20 minutes from Anchorage. Anchorage is Alaska's largest city. So, when you look at the state of Alaska, Alaska as a whole is about 600,000 people, and 300,000 people live in Anchorage. So
wow.
you get a lot of tourists that come to Anchorage, and whether it's on the cruise ships or whatever, and they think they've seen Alaska, and it's well, they've given you the look, but don't touch Alaska. It's so
you're saying half the people. You said about 600,000 live in Alaska, and they're all kind of in the one major city, which I can understand,
Yeah.
So there's 300,000 of you spread out, either, tiny or smaller towns or in the middle of nowhere.
Exactly.
Okay.
So Chicken, my husband and I have a cabin that we summer in, and the population of Chicken, Alaska year round is about 6.
Wow.
So
I'm more wowed that there's a place called Chicken. Where they decide on that name?
So apparently how they came up with the name Chicken, Alaska was back in the early 1900s when they were mining for gold out there. In order to get a post office, you have to have the town incorporated with the name. There were a lot of ptarmigan in the area, which the miners were eating, but they couldn't agree on how to spell ptarmigan. But ptarmigan tastes like chicken, so they decided to name the town Chicken.
I'm cool with that. Now that I know the name, I like that. That was creative. Cool.
Yeah.
So would you say, there's tons of areas I want to go with, but I want to go with this one first. Does Alaska actually feel they're part of the United States?
Well, that's a lot of times I feel no, especially when I'm online arguing with someone when they were we only ship to the United States. And we're like, we're Alaska, we're part of the United States. And it's like, well, not according to us. And it's like, really? Like I literally this winter, I bought a Christmas gift for my husband. I bought it, paid for it, and then they literally came back and canceled the order and said, sorry, we don't ship to Alaska because it's not part of the United States.
Wow.
Literally, I have that email somewhere, and I'm like,
I would frame that and hang that up.
but we get that so often, and when we travel, like whether it's to the lower 48, we call it the lower 48, or whether we travel abroad, we get so many questions about Alaska, and a lot of them, like people will ask us if there's a different currency in Alaska than the United States. We'll get like, do they need a passport to come to Alaska from the United States? We get so many,
just like Hawaii. That's a negative. Yeah,
we're part of the United States. We swear we are, but sometimes we just want to like, oh yes, here we'll exchange it for you,
Yeah.
But hey, it's cool. We're kind of weird up here, and we enjoy it. There's a lot of unique things to do. There's a lot of unique places, but I mean, I've only lived up here. I've lived up here now 15 years. My husband's lived up here 30. He came up here 30 years ago on a 2-week vacation. And you talk about like coming up here, like driving up here. There's so many people, they come up here on a vacation and they never leave.
That's awesome, though.
There is something about Alaska that there's so many people that come up here on vacation and they're just like, screw it. This is where I'm moving. I'm staying.
I've heard that out of a lot of people that took trips about like how beautiful it is and stuff. And, I was, like I said, at the top of the show, like when you said Alaska, I just thought of glaciers and snow and some people that want to live there. But, this is why I love doing shows like this. I love to hear it,
But I would also say people either love it or they hate it. There's some people that get up here like I think the statistic is like the population like changes over, like 50% of the population changes over every 3 years. Like people end up they can't stand the darkness in the winter. So, or it's not even the cold that gets them, it's the darkness, and so they leave. They move out after 3 years, or it's the fact that we have the military base here, and so a certain amount of population just leaves. And so
the abominable snowman.
What's that?
You have the abominable snowman. You guys, it's freaking scary.
I think the moose are way scarier than the abominable snowman. I can handle the abominable snowman, but the moose can be just freaking frightening.
Really? Like what? Like are they territorial, or is that?
Oh, they're beyond territorial. They're like picture just. Actually, I think I read it.
Are they the bear? Are they the bear of Alaska?
Well, we have bears too. We have the bears too, but moose are like, someone put a picture like a Volkswagen on stilts that is dumb and unpredictable. So 1 minute they'll just be sitting there just calm and quiet and happy, and then they'll turn and just charge at you for no explicable reason. They're on you and they just run you down. More people are killed in Alaska by moose than by bear every year.
Wow. So they got some mood swings, huh?
Oh, they do. Definitely. And I think the other thing too is like, because they look so docile and cute.
Yeah.
People think it's safe to get up close to them.
Yeah.
And the other thing too, like when I said the Volkswagen on stilts, they love to walk out in front of your car, and a lot of people hit them on the roads, and that's where a lot of people get killed by the moose. They'll walk right out into traffic. They have no fear.
So they're kind of okay. They have no fear. They're stupid, like with deer in North America.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But they're big. They're huge.
Yeah, for something you see all the time, I've only seen 2 moose in my life, and believe it or not, when I said on my travels, I went through Yellowstone thinking I was going to see 1 million of them, and I saw nothing. And then 10 minutes after I left, I saw a bunch of brake lights and people pulling over, and I'm like, "What are they doing?" And I looked over, and there was 2 moose, so I brake lighted and I pulled over, and and it was probably about only 70 feet away, but like we're filming them with our phones. I'm just watching, like, it was euphoric for me. This is something I never see, but I guess for you, you're like, damn moose, get off the road. You know?
Yeah, well, we have a moose that like typically drops a calf in our backyard every year.
Wow.
And so the terrifying thing about that is like you have to open the door and look both ways to make sure she's not out there with her baby. She's, they get really protective of
Yeah,
their
I guess they
calves,
would be like a bear, right? Like, yeah, if you
Oh
see the
yeah.
cubs, don't move. Yeah, move.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Well, that's definitely interesting news there on that. But as far as like when your media up there, like between your television, are they storming you with what's going on in the mainland, or is it more of like you got your own equal system and you're just Alaska chat, I guess?
It's kind of funny because since we're off the grid a lot, we just tune into what we want. We go online. There's definitely like, pick your poison. Which media do you choose to tune into? Is it more, which one do you want? I mean, there is both, it's just, what is it going to bombard you with, and never forget, we are the home of Sarah Palin.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and she is, I don't know if you probably follow the news in Alaska much, but the fact that we lost our one representative to Congress, we now the political wheels are churning in Alaska in a way they haven't churned in a long time because he was one of the longest running representatives. So right now, the political wheels are in full swing, and we just had our primary, and now everybody's trying to get his seat. So.
Yeah. So basically, there's a big change coming. How many years was the guy in office?
Oh gosh, like 50.
Well, that's a change. One way or another, that's good. That's a giant change. Okay.
Oh yeah, so we just kind of tune in when we want and then just shut it off because it's the constant chatter.
So give me a breakdown here, because I know you when you said the darkness. I don't know how long it is dark there. So at one point, is that what? Is Alaska where it's 24 hours of darkness for a while?
It depends on where you are in Alaska.
Okay.
So here in Anchorage, in the winter times, I think it's about 4 hours a day, 4 to 5 hours a day of daylight in the winters, and then it's dark. And then on the flip side, right now it's the end of May, beginning of June. We are in what's called civil twilight. So the sun is going down, but we're not getting dark anymore at night. So it makes it really hard to sleep. And it'll be like this until mid-August.
All right. So back up. So from right now till about August, there's no night at all?
Exactly.
So is it like dim? Is it like, does it at least turn down to dusk, or is it just like 24/7?
Yeah, it's like I said, it's called civil twilight. So the sun goes a little bit below the horizon and it's just like twilight outside. Now up north where I work, it is 24/7 daylight. The sun it's not going to go below the horizon again until mid-August. So the sun just kind of bounces off the horizon for 86 days.
Wow. And then does it go, was I onto something, or am I thinking of the wrong place? But does it go completely dark at one point?
Yep. So around about Thanksgiving, it'll go below the horizon permanently and it won't come up again until mid-January. So we'll have about 54 days of total darkness. But at the same time I say total darkness, we'll have that kind of civil twilight. So for a few hours, it gets light, like the sun is thinking about coming above the horizon, but then it just gets dark again. The sun never actually rises above the horizon.
So just being a human of Earth, when I hear that, we're a natural, and so are the animals and the plant life. We are something that needs sun. So I'm just kind of curious, like, is the plant life, or is there even a plant life during those 2 months, or is it just, are the animals out, or is that when they hibernate?
Well, so up there, like in the Arctic, it's definitely, the animals are typically hibernating, quiet, except for things like, polar bears. I think they're out on the sea ice. Mm-hmm. The female polar bears are denning, but it's pretty quiet. You do see some caribou. You see some of the Arctic fox and things like that, but pretty much everything else is quiet. All the plant life is covered by ice and snow. It's pretty desolate here. here in
How are the moose and the polar bear eating? Are they just trying to pull stuff out of the sea? Like what are they eating?
Well, so the moose and stuff are pretty much you get a few north of the Brooks Range, but most of the moose and bear they're like south of the Brooks Range. North of the Brooks Range, you got the polar bear, you've got a few grizzlies, but not too many. You've got the caribou. Yeah, the polar bear, they pull stuff out of the ocean. They're pulling their, Arctic marine mammals. So they're pulling out their preferred food is seal. They
Deal.
like to eat the seal. So they're out on the ice getting the seal, except for, like I said, the female polar bear, they den up for the winter to have their cubs.
What are the people doing? It's like hers. Is it just a mindset for people with survival up there of like when it's going to get dark, like, I don't know, were they working longer or just setting their mindset to like, yeah, I'm going to be home, home, like what, writing books or just because, I'm a guy, I hate when the clocks go back here, like, but yet I have a city and, all that, but like, I don't know how in the middle, for people up there, I don't know how you guys are basically setting your mind to.
Well, it's really weird, in the wintertime, yeah, things are a little slower, but people definitely get out, like there's, cross country skiing, there's snowshoeing activities. It's darker, but I would say the darkness doesn't mess with me as much as the constant daylight in the summer. In the summer, it really messes with your head because you just want to be awake all the time. When you mention, we're human beings, we're diurnal creatures. We respond to that sunlight. It makes it hard to sleep. By the end of the summer, you're just dead tired because you're just like, woohoo, in fact, I remember the very first summer I moved to Alaska, my parents came to visit me, and at the time I just bought a condo, and my dad is there like at my condo, like he's putting up ceiling fans, he's doing this, he's doing that, and I'm sitting on the couch going, Dad, can we go to sleep now? And he's just like, no, but there's so much to do. We could do this and we could do this. It's like, Dad, we can go to bed. He's like, what time is it? It's like, it's 11:30, Dad. And he's like, but the sun's still out. And it's like, yeah, Dad, have you ever heard of that land of the midnight sun?
Yeah.
It's time to go to bed. But you lose track of time because it's so bright.
I guess you're all like constantly pulling shades down for that, right? At least trying to make it feel like it's night.
Oh yeah. That's especially working up north where the sun's not going to set at all. It's like when at work, as soon as I get back to camp, I pull the shades and turn off all the lights but my reading light, so that way it feels like it's dark.
Gotcha. So in 1959 is when Alaska officially came part of the United States. So I know, like I was bringing up, like, do you guys feel you're a part of it, or do you actually kind of feel more of the dark? Like they didn't really want nothing to do with us; they just wanted the pipeline to keep things going.
Well, I think they wanted us, but they didn't. I don't know. I'd have to look back historically why they really wanted. I think they really wanted back then. The pipeline and stuff didn't come along until they didn't discover oil in Prudhoe till the late 60s, and the pipeline came along in the 70s. In the 1950s, I think it was more the mineral rights. All the gold and minerals that they were finding in Alaska, like out where we are in Chicken, there's still gold being mined in the 40-mile region. But yeah, it was definitely an interesting time back then.
One thing about America, we're all about resources and we're all about wearing suits and telling everyone they're the good guys. But at the same time, like, look at the other state at the same time, Hawaii, like they try to push it under the rug, but we basically went over there and said, we're taking this.
Yeah.
For minerals and, that. And like, sorry, Queen, we'll take care of you, but, we're taking this. So,
yeah.
We're always kind of the bad guys in the end. We just tell you we're the best country in the world,
Yep.
It's crazy. But so if someone's trying to plan a trip to Alaska, like what do you advise? Like, because I've heard people say like, know exactly where you're going.
I would say know that, so realize how big this state is. So,
yeah, you're in the top 4 largest states when it comes to America.
Well, we're the largest state, hands down by size.
Even bigger than Cali?
Oh, we're way bigger than Cali. If you were to, so
Hmm.
Alaska is the largest state. If you were to cut Alaska in half, it would be states 1 and 2.
Wow. Okay. I didn't know. I knew it was like the top four. I knew it was that Cali,
So
Montana, and Texas. So yeah.
so
Okay.
Alaska is number 1 and Texas is number 2. If you were to cut Alaska in half, it would make Texas number 3.
Okay.
Yeah. So by landmass, we are the largest.
So in a way, small way, you could have been your own country. So I guess yeah, you better know where you're going, right? So I
Yeah.
mean, is there parts like just no man's land? Like, why would you even come here? So kind of, is there basically like this, bullet points of where to go? Obviously, that big city and all that, but like you said, that's not saying you saw Alaska. You're just saying you saw the biggest city in Alaska. So there's other places to go.
Well, consider the fact that only 20% of the state is accessible by road.
Mm-hmm.
So we're the largest state, and there's only so much road. So you want to know, like, what is it you want to do? So, like, do you want to see the southeast where like you see the videos of glaciers and whales and all that kind of stuff? Well, that's like southeast Alaska, right? Where Juneau, Ketchikan, Skagway, Sitka, that's like the very southeast of Alaska. Do you want to see Denali? The world, the US's tallest peak. Well, that's like interior of Alaska to the, like, from Anchorage, that's like northwest of us, right? What is it you really want to see? Do you want to see?
What would you advise? I mean, I guess everyone, you can't obviously, you can come up with something, but it might not be their cup of tea. But like for you, if you were to recommend, here's what I would do. I would tell you to do. What would you tell the audience?
Well, kind of like what you just said, is sit down and plan, what do you really want to see, because it's so big. There's a lot of people who look at a map and they try to like drive to everything. So sit down and plan your trip and plan, okay, if you're only going to be here a week, say, okay, if I want to see Denali, and I want, say, if you're saying, okay, well, I want to see Denali, but I also want to see X, you're probably going to have to fly. If you're saying that I want to go see, the bears out in Brooks Camp, the bears, sitting in the river eating the fish, and I also want to see Denali, you might not have enough time to do both, because you're going to have to fly to both from Anchorage.
And because the state's so big, that's very time consuming. Is that what
you're going to want maybe a couple days at both.
Yeah.
It's like, or it's like, okay, am I going to want to do, it's like, it all just depends on what you want to do. Do you want to go fishing? Like, are you somebody that your dream has been to go, king salmon fishing down in the Kenai? It's like, those are all things that are going to take like a couple days per thing. It's like, are you looking to do a historical tour of a mine? Well, like some of the really cool historical tours, like Kennecott Mine in McCarthy, is on the eastern side of the state, and it's easily a day or two trip by drive, or another flight tour, a day tour by flight and back. So those are all things that's like, just to sit down and figure out what is it you really want to do and plan your trip accordingly. Do you want to drive the Dalton Highway? Or like some people, like the kind of extremers, they want to like drive the Dalton Highway.
So it's the Dalton Highway. Could you explain? Is that like, I don't know, the opposite of the Hannah Highway in Hawaii, where it's like all cliffs? Is that what that is? Because it was.
The Dalton Highway is, basically like, have you seen Ice Road Truckers in the TV show? So
it's funny for a guy who's in film. I don't watch it, so
no worries.
Culture is stupid.
No worries.
I know more of our indie world. Like they're the famous people than me. So.
No, that's just the closest, like, to explain what it is. It is the gravel highway they built when they were building the pipeline, and it supplies Prudhoe Bay, Alaska. So it's from Fairbanks to Prudhoe Bay. It's 400 miles long. And so there's some people that, they come to Alaska and they want to go drive the Dalton Highway. And so I drive it for work, but there's some people, it's a beautiful drive, especially from Fairbanks to Adigan Pass. But it's a really dangerous, brutal road, brutal on cars. there's some people that they want to, like, so out where we are in Chicken, Alaska, because of the gold mining history, they want to drive from Glen Allen out to Dawson City, which is, the Klondike Gold Rush and the big gold strike. So they want to see that historical corridor. So there's different like historical aspects. So some people do it by a tour bus. Some people do it by plane. There's another. Some people like the real kind of that are like kind of in the outdoors extreme. What they'll do is they'll go into Skagway, and they'll hike over White Pass, and then raft down the river to Whitehorse and then Dawson, like kind of recreating the original path to the gold fields in the Yukon. So there's different things. It's like depends on what people want to do. But yeah, I would say if you're going to come up to Alaska, actually, I brought it here for the show. One of the best planning tools if you're going to plan a trip to Alaska, especially by road, if you're going to drive up, is the milepost.
Okay.
So a lot of people also think that they're going to have like great internet or great here. I can tell you, once you get outside of Anchorage or outside of any like semi-large city, you're not going to have that necessarily. So,
how's phone reception when it comes to that, just in general?
Not like, so outside of like Anchorage, Fairbanks, the larger cities, it's non-existent. So
okay.
like when we drive from our place to Chicken, 400 miles, once we get outside of Palmer, Alaska, there's nothing until we hit Glen Allen, which is about 200 miles. And then there's nothing until we hit Tok, which is another.
So there are people basically living up there, kind of like it was the 80s and 90s, right? Like it's just how it is. They're fine with it. It's just, that's what they want.
Yeah, and we have sat phones, and supposedly there's going to be like, whenever they get like Starlink or whatever, we may be able to get, better internet access off grid. But yeah, I would recommend for trip planning, I held this up, the milepost, because it gives you like mile by mile planning your trip and great places to stop along the way.
And that's a book and a website that people could go to?
Yep, it's a book that you can buy that tells you all the major routes and side trips along the way getting to Alaska. So different places, like depending when you're coming from the lower 48 or from Canada, it tells you how to get to Alaska and which routes. It even includes the ferry system. So coming from Seattle, if you plan on taking the ferry system, it tells you how to do that.
Okay. I know. My mother's a travel agent, so they would fly to Seattle and take the boat and go. So yeah, yep. That's how. So what's that about? How many hours is that for Seattle on the boat? Do you know?
I don't know because I've never done that, but I've heard that like taking the ferry system even versus the just the cruise ships is pretty good. Like they do a really good job. They've got you're basically getting the same service as the nice cruise ships, but at a discounted rate, and you can bring your car. What I do know is you can't access your car, once they store it for, it's not like you can just keep going down there because they're trying to prevent theft. But that's a way a lot of people, if they want to bring their car to Alaska or move their car to Alaska, they use the ferry system. A lot of guys, one of our favorite events in the summers for Chicken is called Dust to Dawson. So it's a motorcycle rally from Anchorage to Dawson City in the Yukon Territory, and they ride their motorcycles, and there's a big poker tournament in Dawson City. And so some people will bring their motorcycles up on the ferry, but a lot of people will rent them because since the Taylor Highway is such a rough, can be such a rough highway. It's for the most part unpaved. You typically need a dual sport bike to do the highway. Some people try and do it on a Harley, and it's not recommended on a typical Harley, just because when it rains, the gravel just turns to a slick mud.
With everything you're saying with some of these dangers, would you say, as much as you don't want to, is it smarter to get a tour guide so they could kind of keep you from this danger?
I think you could go either way. What like I've kind of recommended to people is it's kind of smart to do like more than one trip.
Yeah.
Like, go up and do a trip to just like one region of Alaska and check it out, and then do another region. Like if you want to do like the southeast, like, and explore like Juneau, Ketchikan, Skagway in one trip, and then do another trip where you just go to like Denali, Healy, if you want to see like the mountain and that's all you want to do another trip where you want to go.
I think that's what formula you're saying is right. It's kind of like I said, I drove across country 6 times. There's a reason for that. Within 2 trips, I've been to every state, but you run out of time. So you go back and this next time I'm going to stop here and stop here. So the only way I think you could just do one is if you're there for like a month or 6 weeks where like you have the time to spread it out. But that's awesome. And backing up when you said about like all the bears and stuff, like I know like especially like the Yellowstone and all that stuff, like they just talk about like beware of the bears, make sure you have bear spray. Like is there really a difference between how a grizzly bear and a polar bear may respond, act to a human, or are they kind of the same?
Actually, there totally is. The funny thing is that you mentioned that the show I did back in January, I interviewed Steve Nelson, who is a bear deterrence expert with the USGS, and they started their bear defense program because in 1978, one of their biologists was severely mauled on the Yukon by a black bear, so severely she lost both her arms.
Wow.
And you'll be happy to know that she survived, and she's still an emeritus biologist with the USGS. But Steve developed the program to train the USGS biologists and scientists to be aware of bear behaviors and defend themselves against bear and other wildlife. And so we talked a lot in that show about what like a bluff attack is from a bear, how to identify a black bear versus a brown bear, because it's not just their coloring, it's the shape of the bear and the size of the bear. But so it was a really great show. And then with the polar bear, they are one of the few animals on Earth that preys on humans. They are a top predator. They eat only meat. They are just really intense.
Are you basically saying if you see a polar bear, it's most likely all over? He's not just going to pass up the meal?
Pretty much, yeah. They're pretty intense. They're they can move at almost 40 miles an hour. They're brown bears and black bears, I believe it's like 35 miles an hour. Polar bears between 35 and 40 miles an hour.
So the polar bear really the king of the bears, like even more than the grizzlies?
Yep. Polar bears are the king of the bears. They are marine mammals. They swim. Mm-hmm. They like I said, seals are their preferred meat. And when we did our training up north, when I was working up in Prudhoe, the bear guy up there said to a polar bear, you're nothing more than a funny looking seal, and you actually move slower.
So I get into when you were talking about that show, what are the defenses? Because, there's always the bear position of cuddling up in a ball, they say, and hope that God, it loses interest in you. So, like, what are you doing? I guess you're supposed to stop. Are you supposed to, I don't think running's the right thing either, right?
No, you never run.
Yeah.
Never run from the bear, because it'll just chase you and it can run faster than you. They say that the biggest thing is to always face it, make yourself look bigger. Uh-huh. Most bear charges are defensive charges or bluff charges. I mean, first and foremost, never get between a female and her cubs.
Yeah.
So you're pretty much dead.
Yeah.
But always make yourself look bigger.
So it's basically in a small way challenge back, but you don't really want to fight it, right?
Yeah, But the old used to be that they would say, oh, curl up in a ball and play dead or whatever. But now they say that is not the best thing to do. They say fight back for all you're worth, because by the time you realize it is a defensive charge or a defensive attack, you're going to be too badly mauled to be able to fight your back. If this bear has decided it wants to eat you, you're going to be so badly mauled that it's going to be too late. So they said if a bear is attacking you, I mean, the best thing to do is to not put yourself in a place where it can attack you. Try and avoid the bear, make yourself look big, make a lot of noise when you're in the backcountry. But you should carry some sort of weapon. But the odds are, and they have a really good video and a really good that they use for their training is keep in mind how fast a bear can move. There's great videos out there. I said a typical brown or black bear can move 35 miles an hour, which means in 100 feet, it can cover that ground in 2 seconds if it decides to charge. So you have less than 2 seconds to draw your weapon and fire.
Yeah.
So that's even if you see it, right? So if you're out in the woods, you may not even see it before it decides to charge you. And so it's just one of those things a lot of people, they think that, oh, well, I'm going to have all this time to pull my weapon and fire multiple times. You're going to be lucky to get off one shot.
Yeah.
So it's, but yeah, so it was great interviewing Steve about that. Just a lot of the myths and thoughts that people have about bears that they really think they're gonna, but all of my encounters I've had with bears, most of them, especially ones that haven't been habituated to humans, they usually run away as soon as they see you. If they, all the encounters I've had, that we've had at our cabin or I've had out hiking, just, walking, talking, as soon as the bear has seen me, it's been I'm out of here. I don't want anything to do with this.
Yeah.
The one encounter
for me living up in Pennsylvania, I'd say I know exactly 5 times I've seen a bear, and all 5 they've ran. And even when they ran, I'm constantly looking as their cubs around, just in case.
Yeah, just in case. Yeah.
Yeah, just in case. But yeah. So.
Yeah, the one encounter we had at the cabin with the bear that you could tell it was on the verge of, is it going to charge us? Is it going to attack? It was a bear that had become habituated to humans. And we took a shot at it and it ran. And so that and we learned from some of the other people in the area that it had been breaking into cabins and attacking people. Somebody actually finally got that one. It broke into a cabin and they shot it.
I feel bad for that. Yeah, I've always felt, but I also understand, at the same time. Yeah, but that's crazy. So I got to flip this out to you. And I, previously talked to you for a second about this particular topic, but, it's one of those things where when you watch a movie, you see the kid was just, he was stupid and probably really shouldn't have been there, but I completely understand what he was trying to do. He was trying to go off the grid, but what is Alaska's take on the Into the Wild?
That is one that, like a lot of people, not my favorite. I think that they took something that, sounds like a great idea, and now it's just I think if they want to make something great, there's a better story that a lot of people never hear about. Have you ever heard of Dick Pernacki?
Definitely did not. I'm all ears, though.
So Dick Pernacki was a guy back in the 60s who at the time was a carpenter and said, you know what, I want to try living off the grid for a year. He built his own cabin out in Twin Lakes, Alaska, out on the Seward Peninsula, and he ended up living out there for 30 years.
Interesting.
And he and his brother made their own home series of movies that you can buy today and you can watch them. And it's called Alone in the Wilderness. and much better than what Chris McCandless did and what the Alone in the Wilderness. But they're awesome. The awesome movies. Yeah, the guy built his own cabin. The cabin is still there today. You can go tour it. Like if you get out there.
When was it? So you said they lived there 30 years. So this was what, in the 60s or something?
Yeah, it was in the 60s. And when he was in his 50s, when he decided to do the experiment, he just decided, you know what, I want to, I'm done being a carpenter. I just want to go on, live alone. He was out there, and sure, every now and then his brother would come maybe bring him some cookies or check on him. But otherwise, he was fishing out of the lake. He was picking berries. He kept meticulous records for 30 years of like what the temperatures were every day. When did the ice, when did the lake ice over? When were the trees budding out? The Park Service still uses his records to judge how the climate is changing out there. So it's really his life is really fascinating, and I think it's interesting that they make a big deal about Chris McCandless, who did his thing, and it's like, okay, it is what it is. But here's Dick Pernacki, and you never hear about him.
So, yeah. So, but as far as Chris goes, is he just like, in a way, like the local buffoon, like someone who walked into our world and like did what we even thinking? I
think it's kind of sad and tragic because he didn't have to die.
No.
He could have been saved. He could have walked out. Here's
one thing. I don't know if this is true or a myth, but did I hear he really wasn't as far out as
No, he wasn't. He wasn't that far out.
Wasn't there like some sort of convenience store, like really not too far away, like under 5 miles or something?
I don't know if he was about the convenience store, but I do know that he wasn't that far out away from things, and he just.
I know what he had. I don't remember like every detail of the movie, but he was there for a few months. Like I don't know how. I was a kid in Pennsylvania that just walked. Like I just explored. So I don't know how did the kid not find something like that. You would think with all that downtime, you know what I mean? You would just kind of learn every bit of that land, where to go.
I don't know the whole details. I know part of it was he was eating the local ground plants.
He ran out of food, and he had a book, and he was looking at berries and worms, and he read it wrong.
Well, he was eating a local plant that was actually poisonous.
Poison, yeah. He read it wrong because he went back in and re-looked, and he got confused, and yeah.
And so he was trying to kind of live off the land, but it was also one he could have walked not very far to the Park Service road and gotten help. But then since then, we've had a lot of people kill themselves trying to get to that stupid bus, so much so that they finally removed the bus.
They moved it. I saw it on YouTube. And honestly, I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke. On my trip, I wanted to see about going to that bus, but now it's moved. I don't even know what they did with it, but.
It will actually be at the Museum of the North in Fairbanks. So if you still want to go see the bus, you can do so. But like I said, I think Dick Pernacki's cabin is actually on my bucket list in Twin Lakes.
Well, that's something everyone should Google and look up. And, I'm pretty sure there's probably stuff you can find on YouTube on Dick. And, that's definitely a cool story to check out. But you're saying I knew people were getting hurt going to try to find it was the magic bus, but like people actually have died.
Oh, yeah. You can look it up. In fact, I think we just had just before they removed it, they had like 2 people die because the river crossing was flooded, and they. Yeah, it's
what they decided to walk across it anyway. Like, well, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
No, this is. Yeah, it's just one of those things.
Amazing. So, and as far as like, you obviously work in Alaska. Could you tell everybody what you do?
Oh, I am an engineer. So I'm a site engineer for Pump Station 4. Up on the pipeline. So, and I am an electrical engineer by discipline. So, I have a master's of power systems engineering.
So you say you're actually working on the pipeline. So everybody listening, we get our energy from you. You're part of the team. How about that?
Yeah.
Great. And you're also working on a book?
I'm working on several books. So I've self-published 2 books. I'm working on the 3rd book in the series. So it's my Darklands series. The first one is the Darklands. Second one is the Devil's Valley. Third one will be the Witch's Craw Mine. So the third and the last one in that series. I'm also working on getting traditionally published a vampire series set in Dawson City during the Gold Rush.
That's awesome. I mean, I'm sure you're writing all this stuff when it's completely dark, right?
Sometimes a lot of it I'm writing out at my cabin in Chicken when it's completely light. So
yeah, okay. I kind of figured. I always say when I do my script writing, but that it's right when the clocks go back in November here. It's like, all right, we're gonna be ready for the next 2 months till it starts getting a little bit more light again and everything. But
there you go.
Is there anything else you would like to pass along about Alaska to the audience that you think they should know?
I just think if you come up here, just come up and have a good time. People up here are super friendly and they're super helpful. Don't be afraid to ask people's opinions of where you should go and what you should do. Especially like getting off. If you're like, hey, I'm from out of town and I'm looking for something offbeat, people are always happy to recommend like your favorite places. I mean, I have like my favorite breweries and my favorite restaurants here in town. And so like if I'm on like social media and you're like, hey, Daniella, I'm coming to Anchorage and I'm looking for like X restaurant or X thing to do, I'm always happy to like, hey, yeah, try this out. This is really great. So people up here are super friendly, like at least in my opinion.
Well, you are the last state I need to say I've been everywhere, in the United States. So, one day we will cross paths on my trip up there.
Well, there you go. There you go. If you come up here, actually, one thing I should mention, if you come up here and you go to Dawson City, we'll have to take you to do the sourdough cocktail.
I'm excited. I'd go right now if I didn't have work tomorrow.
Right on. Do you know what the sourdough cocktail is?
Absolutely no idea. Explain.
It's the downtown hotel in Dawson City. It is a cocktail with a preserved human toe in it.
I think I'll pass. I'm just saying. I'm not exactly into feet. It's just not my thing.
So you don't have a toe fetish?
No, you know what? No, it's just something about feet being gross.
Yeah. I did it just because I was like, you know what? Actually, at first I was solidly in the no, I'm not going to do this. But then while we were there, like touring around, I found out I was getting laid off from my job. And then I started drinking and I went from no to why the hell not? And I did it. Now I'm in the sourdough club. So
cool. I got one good question here for you. So I just believe the Earth as a whole, we've been in a lot of ice ages. Yellowstone has reset us numerous times. The world's always getting warmer. So when it comes to climate change, I believe even if we weren't harming it, I still think the Earth was going to get warmer. So my question to you is, you said it goes down to 70 below where you're at.
Yeah.
What do you think as a whole, and what do you think Alaska thinks of climate change? Like, is it something they kind of snicker at? Do they see a difference? Like,
it's tough to say because it varies from person to person. I know that if you look around this year, right now we had record snowfalls this year in Fairbanks. We're having record flooding. But then, you can see that like over the years, we've had warmer summers, we've had warm winters, but then all of a sudden we're having record cold winters. I think it ebbs and flows. We know that we look over the previous ice ages. You look at Alaska, there was a time in an ice age past, after one of the ice ages where we had, mammoths and other creatures running around up here. We can see the fossil evidence of it. We know right now the glaciers are retreating, but we know that at one point in time that they weren't here at all. That there were no glaciers here. So it's tough to say. It's like a lot of people, just depends on who you ask. It ebbs and flows, and we'll have to see where it goes, right?
Gotcha. How is this, if it's going to go 70 below zero, what do you guys have? Generators after generator backup in case of the worst? Like how does that work? Like power
Oh
wise?
yeah, you have generators, you have heating oil, you have wood. It's just like out there in Chicken. It's like one of the ladies who's lived out there year round. She says, yeah, at those temperatures, you don't. That's when you don't go outside when it gets that cold because your backup plan has to be solid or you're gonna die. It's like there's no ifs, ands, or
And
buts. You can survive at -20, -30 and be okay, but -70, there's no messing around. It's
so have you like walked outside your house even for like a second when it's below 70? Like is it immediately like does it get hard to breathe? Like you
well, when I say I've been outside at -70, that's at work. And so when I'm out there working, yeah, I've been outside at work at -70,
wow.
and it's you're basically like the only thing you can see is my eyes, and a lot of times I'll wear goggles too because
Even possibly to be like fairly warm when it's that like what you could you possibly wear to keep you the
well
heat out?
you're wearing like full Arctic gear, so you're wearing like heavy boots, Arctic bibs, a parka over your warm weather clothes. So you're wearing multiple layers of clothes. Face mask, goggles. If you're going to be outside for any length of time at those temperatures, you'll wear a respirator because you don't want to damage your lungs. When you get below -40, your lungs can freeze. You can damage
Wow.
the lining of your lungs, so you wear like a respirator. But if you're just going out like real quick,
Yeah.
you just wear like a face mask and a parka.
Wow. Suddenly it being 97 degrees here doesn't sound like a bad idea. And do cars could they even run when it's for like 70 below? Could a battery even,
Oh
you know?
yeah, but
Yeah.
typically we have them like connected to like heating blocks, right? So you plug
Okay.
them in because otherwise the fuel will gel up.
Okay.
The fuel will gel up. The oil will get all sluggish. The battery will freeze and it won't start. But so we plug them in so they have heaters and they'll stay warm enough to start.
So if like this, I don't know, say you're going to this is gonna say like a grocery store, supermarket. When you turn your car off, do you have to plug it into one of those things? Are they set up, or like how much time do you have before
A
the
lot of times, a lot of places like that, you'll leave it running. You
okay.
typically won't. You typically won't turn it off if you're just going in for like a few minutes. You'll leave it running, or you'll plug it in. A lot of places, like if you go to Fairbanks, you'll see a lot of places have plugins.
So I guess it's one of those things where no one even thinks of stealing a car out of respect why it's running.
Well, yeah, I would say a lot of us have like if you have like a key to lock it and you have a key you leave in the ignition.
Mhm.
If you're gonna, yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Some people will still try and steal them. It's
Gotcha. It's just a different world, you know.
it is a different world.
It's a different world, and this is why you're one of my guests this time. I just always love hearing about, all different types of cultures and stuff. But again, a lot of people just think Alaska's just a sheet of ice, and like, why would you even go there? And I think this podcast, I learned a lot right here talking to you. So I hope everyone else who is listening does too.
Right on.
Sweet. So, Danielle, I thank you so much for coming on Average Superstar TV and the support you've given me over the years. So,
Right on.
at this time, feel free to plug away because I know you're busy with things. You're always up to something yourself. So,
Right on. Well, thanks for having me as a guest. I really appreciate it. And yeah, we're getting ready. We're ramping up for the summer, so we'll be off grid a lot, but we'll still try and do the Alaska Divided by Zero podcast on the Escape Network.
okay.
Like I said, we're working and Cold Fusion. So my podcast is Alaska Divided by Zero. Ray's is Cold Fusion, where we talk about all things Alaska. And we're also, like I said, still working on my books. You can find me on Facebook Instagram and Twitter. My handle is pretty much the same on all three, DM Shepard 13. So you can see lots of pictures and drone videos of stuff we're doing out at our cabin off grid. And so we've got a lot of really cool stuff coming up. So
awesome. Well, I thank you for coming on, and I thank everyone who took the time to listen to this show. We have a new show every Monday morning at 5:30. So also feel free to hit that subscribe button on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio. And with that, I say the party is over.